Okay, it's live. I hope. I never know until I load it up into the computer and go for it. It happened. It's finally happened. I was going to do the best album of 2023, and I realized there is no best album of 2023. It'd be much easier to do the best album of 19 other different years, but 2023, I think we finally reached that point where there just aren't any good albums. I mean, there might be a couple of good tracks here and there, and there definitely is that. But I was looking at the list from NME.com, the British music magazine. It's all arts, but anyway, it's mostly music. And coming in at number one for 2023 was boygenius, the supergroup, the all-girl supergroup named boygenius, with Phoebe Bridgers and a couple of other girls in there. I can't even remember the girls, and Julian something, and the third girl. The third girl is sort of like the third soprano, like, the other guy, the third guy, but it's a girl. But anyway, listen, I mean, I've had this discussion with several friends over the past week or so, since the last video that I did, which I appreciated that it's getting a decent amount of views, and you're supposed to like it and subscribe and all that kind of stuff if you're watching this. But anyway, I went back in the archives a little bit on the internet and just for laughs looked up, this is 2023, a year of shitty records, shitty quality. So I said, let me go back 50 years to 1973 and take a look at what was some big records. And just a little thing called Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, Inner Vision, Stevie Wonder, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Elton John. It goes on and on and on. And these are albums that are still being played today in full. You can go somewhere and hear any one of these records playing over whatever, jukeboxes, whatever, playlists, whatever. 73. So then I went to 83. Just a little album called Thriller was where 1983 took us. And there was several other albums. I guess Purple Rain came out in 83. Just some other big, gigantic, ominous records. 1993, we got into, I'm not saying it was the best album of the year, but I mean, 1993 brought us Notorious B.I.G. It brought us, the sort of like the 90s hip hop wave came in and got things rolling. 2003, several somewhat decent records. I worked on one of them. I worked on several in 93. Definitely a couple in 2003 that came out. 2013 didn't look so good. And now we get to 2023 where there's this other artist. She was number 8. Amaarae. Amaarae, I guess. She apparently scored big with TikTok. And so for 15 seconds, people will use the song for some like drill rap contest or some shit like that. It's nice of her to have 2.5 minute, 3-minute songs, but a lot of them are, I think, like 1 minute and 38 seconds. Let's see. 209. Yeah, she's pushing it out. Then there's Pink Pantheress. Another one with the 1 minute and 40-second song. So she has a new song that's like 4 minutes long, because now I think some people are getting involved with actually making full records with her. It is what it is, right? it's the, yelling at the clouds, get off my lawn, all that kind of stuff. But it's disappointing, to say the least. Like, why wouldn't things go from, you would think that it would sort of go the opposite, right? Like that we would start in 1973 with like shitty records, and then in 2023 come into things like Dark Side of the Moon. But to say that we might be regressing or that things are deteriorating is not good. So, I'm not going to be all doom and gloom on this particular episode, although I could. That's where that's at. I'd like to tell you about my side project, Slow Down the Quick. I dropped a new song. I think it's coming out tomorrow or something like that. Slow Down the Quick is like all me, all my music, using like, all my time, my extra free time in the studio. And I'm up to about 20 some tracks now. I think there's probably, by the end of this year, there'll probably be about 60 uploaded, because I'm pretty close on a bunch. And there's one that's just coming via, Spotify. And then there's 2 or 3 more in the pipeline. So those take like a week each time to propagate. And so I'd appreciate it if you check that out. And there's a video for the latest one, which was A Story of Frozen Mix. And there's, it's not much of a video, but it's just for the audio. But that's actually getting a surprising amount of buzz attention through YouTube. And I'm getting like contacted for it, and people are interested in it. So there'll be more. The new stuff is going to have a lot more guitar than the first 20 or so tracks that were out in 21 and 22. I took 23 kind of off, as I did with a bunch of things. I just had too many distractions going on in 23. The other things that I have coming up are a record that I co-produced and engineered and mixed for an artist named Steve Barraquette. And he's a Canadian, I'm going to screw it up probably. He's Canadian, he's from Quebec, but he's Lebanese also. He's based out of Quebec and somewhere else in Europe. And his new single drops February 14th called Gimme Some Love. I'll probably at some point do a little thing on that. It's a lot of fun. He's a insanely talented, classically oriented piano player who has played Carnegie Hall and solo last year, and that's when I met him. Oddly enough, I met him through some friends at the Cigar Lounge in New York City. We were all there hanging out, and I got introduced to Steve. We hit it off regarding music and cigars, and next thing you know, we're doing a record. And I think we have 5 tracks more or less done now, and it looks like we're going to do another 4 or 5 real soon. I guess I'll be going back up to Quebec, and I will be ordering somewhere. I will try and find some chocolatine, which is, I just learned today, is like, I guess it's pain de chocolat, but it's called chocolatine up there and in other places. Steve will correct me on that. So that's where that's at. Little update on what I'm up to, and feeling better. I got rid of the sinus infection, I think, but it's still sort of lingering. I still have a little bit of things here and there, but that could be the weather, could be the way things, when you're going in and out of like super cold. Now tonight we're having like this crazy rainstorm, which thank God isn't snow, because I think it would be, feet, not inches of snow. take it from here. We're going to talk about some videos that I watched recently, which one of them is, going back. This is like random stuff. I bumped into an AC/DC concert from 1981. I would suggest to you that if you're a music fan and particularly like a rock fan, dial it up. It's AC/DC live 1981. It's a multi-camera shoot, and it's another one of those things where you're like, wow, man, things have really changed. These guys were on stage with just insane stage volume, insane energy. I don't know where they got it all besides chemicals or something, but a lot of green tea. And it's just a lot of fun to watch, just to see the raw energy that these guys put out, and the reason why their AC/DC 40 years later still entertaining people, even though people have died, and the one brother died in the band, and I think the drummer just passed too, even though I don't think he was the latest touring drummer. But one of those things to check out. Some records that I've been getting into lately. I've been getting into Marabou State. It's probably not the newest thing in the world. Let me get a sip of coffee. Hold on a second. Why am I wearing the jacket? Because I was in bed in the bastard mood this afternoon when I decided to make this. And not to mention, for a little brief moment, the heat in the building was off because they were fixing a pipe or something like that. So it got a little chilly in here, and I didn't want to turn on the space heater kind of thing. So there's some more gory details for you. So right now I'm in my studio, which is a different atmosphere than when I'm over in the living room. And I think I kind of maybe I'll stick with this one for a while. I wish I could play some music, but I would be worried that I would get the copyright flags and all that kind of stuff. So I could back off a little bit. I could tell you, there was another artist that was on the list. This guy, Troye Sivan. Actually, one of the songs I had heard already, and I had favorited it on my Spotify. So, admittedly, I think he was in number 3 on the NME list. And I don't mind his stuff. I don't like his album cover, but that's a whole nother story. That's another can of worms. But this song, One of Your Girls, pretty cool. Good sounding track. It's well executed, I think. And, check him out. Let me see if I'll dial up the other things. We're in Spotify. For this, not that one. I want the other one. Is it this one? Yes. That's Amare, Fountain Baby. Mitski, never heard of. Blur, Ancient. Sufjan Stevens. I don't know. Is that how you pronounce his name? Queens of the Stone Age. I've been on a Queens of the Stone Age binge lately, mainly for their live stuff. And I think that song, No One Knows, is just an epic rock song. And the recording, the performance, of course, it's famous for the video is really cool with the whole crazy running into the deer thing or whatever, and Dave Grohl playing drums. That's from Nirvana, for all the people that are not familiar with Dave Grohl. I don't know how that would be possible. Foo Fighters and Nirvana. Let's see what else is on here. Romy, not familiar. 100 Gex. JPEG Mafia, not familiar. Foo Fighters. Oh, I didn't even know they had a new record out. We're still going. Genesis Owusu. Military Gun, Jesse Ware, I've heard of. Sleep Token, never heard of. Blonde Shell, never heard of. Lana Del Rey. Big fan of Lana Del Rey. Not the biggest fan of this particular record. This is Did You Know There's... Lana's... she had a kid. She's getting a little older. Maybe not coming with the fire like she used to. Lorraine James, no idea. Earl Sweatshirt and the Alchemist, I think I've heard of. Feel free to comment in the comments below if there's somebody I should know about that you're seeing. Water From Your Eyes. Pink Pantheress, that's the one. Listen, I mean, she's number 29 here on this list, which is, let's see if we can get this. Every once in a while it loses me, huh? No big deal. Pink Pantheress is kind of a big deal, and I noticed from her credits that, like, I guess maybe she got a little bit of label action now, and she's got some more important people working on her records. I think Spike Stent did some mixing for her, and somebody else. Speaking of credits, I was watching an interview with a guy who was from an 80s band. He was a guitar player back in the 80s from Mr., which had that Broken Wing song and Curie LA song, or Curie something. And he was talking about the record that they made, and that was a huge record. Those two songs went to #1, and those were the days of real #1 songs. I mean, if you were #1 on the Hot 100, that means you sold more copies than anyone else, and also they combined sales and airplay, I believe, to give you your chart position. So, like, it was real, because there was real airplay and there was real sales, and they had two #1s. But it was funny because I said, who made that record? And the producer, I didn't know, but I went and dug a little into their credits, and I'm going to bring up the boygenius credits in a second, because that's an interesting part of things. And I've always talked about how it's very important to have the A-team with you when you're making a record. And in this case, they had two phenomenal mixers, Mick Gazowski and Mike Shipley. Just look up their names. They've done a ton of incredible records. And then on the assistant engineers, one of the assistant engineers was Chad Blake, who's still a very well-known, legendary mixing engineer now. I don't know if he does any recording, probably. And Eddie Delana. Now, Eddie Delana is not like a big household name. No offense, Eddie. Not that I think you're going to watch this. But Eddie came from the Michael Jordan camp back when I was... Michael Jackson camp. And I worked with Eddie on Michael Jackson stuff. And Eddie was one of the lead engineers, along with Bruce Wadian. And just a great dude. I learned a ton of stuff from him. I learned a ton of how to, this probably won't sound good for him, but I learned how to deal with people and how to sort of, the way he kind of just hung out in the room was like a big influence on me. He was super chill. We used to call him Eddie Butter because his hair was always perfect. And just a great guy who, after the Michael record that we worked on, I think he got into being like a sommelier, and then maybe managing some restaurants and things like that. He had done a lot of records, and he decided he wanted to do other things, which, in a lot of ways, I don't blame anyone. So the credits. So yeah, that's when you're talking about you wonder why a record turns out great. Just look at the list of people that are involved and see, who the weakest link wasn't even a weak link. It was just crazy stuff to have those guys as assistants. And the level of interest and care that was coming from those guys had to be, very beneficial to Mr. Mister when they were making their number one records. The Boy Genius stuff is interesting because I know that, people could take this whatever fucking way they want to take it, but there's a lot involved with Boy Genius in, okay, the name, because it's, somewhat of a little dig at the patriarchy, I guess, or something along those lines. It's anti-guy, even though there's guys working on the record. But if you try and dig around and see who's worked on the record, who's played on the record, who's engineered the record, who's mixed the record, I think there's a little bit of shenanigans going on out there with like intentional lack of information or lack of, giving up the info on who really made the record and what was involved. Because in my opinion, I think they're probably playing on the fact that it's politically beneficial to them to say that it's like all a bunch of girls when it wasn't. And I have nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong if it was a bunch of girls, but if it is, it is. And if it isn't, it isn't, if you know what I'm saying. Another thing that was sent to me during the week was a video clip of an artist who I'm very familiar with and have worked with previously. And the clip was this artist saying, at one point I just decided to get rid of all people that brought any negativity to the room. And I thought about it, and it's kind of interesting because there's one thing I remember being around this artist was that at one point there was a lack of negativity because everyone was doing the let me kiss this person's ass so that I can make sure I keep getting a check. And I've been around several of those sessions or projects where at a certain point, there is no one saying anything negative or critical. It's not negative. Like there isn't even someone saying anything with any sense of critique. Like, hey, I think we could do that better. Or, hey, I think this could be played better. Or, hey, we should bring in this person because this would be played better. Because at a certain point, no one wants to lose that check. And so the idea that you got rid of the negativity is a little bit off. What you got rid of is anyone that would tell you something you didn't want to hear. It's a tough pill to swallow, but back when projects are a little bit earlier in the game and there's not as much money at stake, people are a little more willing to just go out and say like, hey, I don't know about that song. I didn't really like that song. And that's the negativity that you need, because not every idea is a great fucking idea, and not every move is the right move. And there needs to be some scrutiny. Just my opinion. And I think that the clip was a little bit misleading and a little bit, I don't know, BS, because in some ways I think a lot of times the artist knows that they kind of made some wrong moves in who they kept around and who they didn't keep around, because at the time they were, gassing themselves up and enjoying getting gassed up, and they now look back and go like, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should have kept a couple of those people that kind of were provided some checks and balances, and maybe I would have better records.